So I'm just going to introduce. Welcome to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff. This show is heard on WBCQ The Planet every Monday and Thursday evenings at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, broadcast out of beautiful Monticello, Maine, and heard around the world. We also are on YouTube, and this audio version of this will be on our Podomatic. That's our flagship platform, but also Amazon, and I don't, about a half a dozen others. And it's brought to you by Camp Constitution, which, among other things, runs a week-long family camp, weekend retreat, ladies retreat, and many other things. Visit our website, campconstitution.net. Last month, I had the pleasure and opportunity to speak to a group out in Michigan, the Michigan Republican, Mackinac Island, where my wife and I attended. Of course, I couldn't go to a five-star hotel without my wife. She would never forgive me for that. So anyway, she came out, and we had the pleasure of meeting Leah Southwell, I think, who was the first lady coordinator for the John Birch Society, and her friend. He has an incredible story, Peter, escaping from Czechoslovakia. So instead of me reading a blip from your book, why don't you just introduce yourself to the millions of listeners? Well, I'm exaggerating, maybe not million, maybe thousands of listeners around the world.
Okay, yeah, my name is Peter Vodenka. I was born in communist country of Czechoslovakia, and I escaped from during the communism with my wife and two little children, and end up in America. So that escape situation was very touchy. It took me 10 years to figure out how to get out alive because our government would rather kill us than let us be free. So since I was 17 years old, I was praying and hoping and dreaming and wishing that I'm gonna go to America. You know, hell, I heard about freedoms in America and opportunities. You know, freedom of speech, religion, political belief. Those are big freedoms, but we know about them. We talk about them a lot, but we have so many other freedoms over here which we don't even recognize as the freedoms. You know,
We have
you
freedom of association, freedom to start a business, freedom to work where you wish, to travel. There's no
yeah.
such thing as an internal passport. I know in communist countries, you had to have a passport to travel to another town in some cases.
Yeah, and even get the job, go to school, go to education. That was all controlled by communists, and even moving from place to place and or changing the job, it was very difficult. No, not difficult, very unusual way to do it. It wasn't simple. Nothing was simple over there. Everything was complicated.
Now, give me some time frame. Czechoslovakia was created at the end of World War One, the Treaty of
Yes,
Versailles. It was this country that was actually created. It was Slovakia and Czech Republic, and of
Moravia.
course there were fractions right then and there. But the minute the country was started, I understand,
Right, right.
and then the Germans invaded. They bombed Prague, and it was a small country against the powerful Nazi war machine. And after the war, the Soviets were handed Czechoslovakia, even though
Yes.
there were some I know Patton had some troops in Czechoslovakia. He
Yeah,
had to get out of there, had to leave them. In fact, if the story is correct, I had a friend of mine who told me about the Lippinzahn horses that were going to be eaten by the Soviets. And Patton, along with some Germans, believe it or not, German soldiers, went into and saved those horses. That's one of these very interesting stories that not many people know about. But what happened when it was a relatively free country up until the occupation of Germany, and then the Soviets took over. So give us how the Soviets ended up taking over that country.
Well, the Soviets, the first there was uh, the government, the communist government took the country first, and of course they were building train and educated and everything in the Russia. But Czechoslovakia at the time had about 7 political parties, which communism was one of them. But they were the small political parties, and they have no chance to get elected legally. So they know they have to do the coup. So eventually, eventually it was in 1947 when communists came to power. They prepared themselves, they prepared the country, they prepared the positions, And then when they felt they are strong enough, and of course it was all Russians' observation, right? They were watching them, educating them, leading them, telling them what to do and what not to do. And believe it or not, when communists decided to take the power over or government over in Czechoslovakia, it took 1 week. 1 week
Wow.
when whole country, when just like in America, free enterprise, private ownership, competition, in 1 week it was all over. Nobody could own anything. Uh, People have no freedoms of anything. It was pretty much darkness came in 1 week, and people lost the whole human rights and all different lifestyle.
And how
And
old
then
were you at that time?
I wasn't born yet. I was born in 1955. So
55.
I don't remember that. But then in 19, so communists were a really strong hold
By the
on
way, you don't look
government.
that old, so I didn't think you were born in the 1940s. You're a youngish looking man, so
Yeah. And so, and the communists were really stronghold on everything. They are executing people, killing people, getting rid of anybody who might in any way oppose them or be any kind of threat to them. And but in 1967, we
it's freezing up. That's the problem. Was
suddenly
there we go.
we have different government. They call it communism as human face.
Hmm.
Okay, did you okay? I thought I lose you for a second. Anyway, but Russians couldn't see it because the Czechoslovakia suddenly started having more freedom. People did, and suddenly everything was going the right way, and people were happy, and everything was going good. But the Russians was afraid. It looks like Russians are gonna lose the stronghold on the
Mm.
Czechoslovakian government. So of course they couldn't allow it because if Czechoslovakia split from Eastern European countries, then it might have domino effect in other countries. So in September 21st, sorry, August 21st in 1968, we woke up in the morning and Russians were everywhere. That was
Mm.
overnight attack. The government disappeared. They took all the radio stations, everything under control, and they came with the tanks and paratroopers and special forces. And in one night, the dream which we have for about year and a half, that dream was gone. And at that time, I was 13 years old.
And so you're a very young person at that time. Now, your parents, what did they do? What kind of work did they do? And I imagine was your father in the war in World War II?
No, no, he wasn't because Czechoslovakia didn't go in the World War II.
Right.
What happened was, yeah, there was that whole deal when actually our military got uh, disabled, dismissed, and we lose all the military, everything. So the Germans have free hand to march into Czechoslovakia and stuff. So my father was born in 1921. So he was young man when Germans came over, and but he wasn't in the war because there was no military
There's
to
no
be
no
in.
military. Yeah. Because I know the Germans did conscript some. They did have different nations fight under with them, and I
Right.
imagine it was probably a Czech group that so-called volunteered to fight with the Nazis.
Right. Well, and Slovakia actually became the ally with Nazis. So
Hmm.
the Czechoslovakia split at the time, and Slovakia was German allies, but they were not only one. I mean, Hungarians were fighting alongside with them. Finnish, there was many countries which were fighting alongside with the Germany against the Russians, against the Bolsheviks. So.
By the way, I want to ask you: are you familiar with the book "And Not a Shot Is Fired"? It was written by a Czechoslovakian communist, Jan. I can't remember the last name. We actually put it back in print, and it just says
Okay.
how you take over a country without a violent revolution.
Right.
And
Right.
he must have been part of the Czech government that was there when the communists ended up taking over in what 47, you said.
Yeah. I have that book on my nightstand,
Oh,
but I
okay. So
didn't
you
get to
are
it
familiar
yet.
with it.
But yeah,
We
yeah.
uh, we publish it, and I do recommend if you go to our website, campconstitution.net, and get a copy of it. It was interesting that I had copies of that book that were published back in the late 90s. A lot of different conservative patriotic groups put that back in print to illustrate how what's happening in this country, how we can be overthrown without a violent revolution. And their books during the height of the George Floyd riots, the book was actually selling. It was only like 60 pages too. It was
Mhm.
selling for $200 or more a copy, and I had
Well,
like a handful of, and I ended up we put it back in print, and of course the demand has gone down considerably. But it was really incredible how people were vying. They wanted this information because they want to know, explain what was happening and what was happening today. You know what happened in Czechoslovakia can happen here. So
well, I think it's happening already. It's not so visible. It's not so violent, and of course, it's taking longer than 1 week.
right,
Because the America is a little bit different. We have United States Constitution, we have state rights and people's rights and stuff, even though governments are gonna trying to destroy it because United States Constitution is in their way to take us people over completely. But they are working on it. We know it. We can see it.
they
We can
are.
see it all around us.
So you're in Czechoslovakia. How old are you at the time when you escaped?
Well, I started planning it when I was 17 years old.
Wow,
And of course, nobody can know anything. Not my parents, nobody can know anything what I'm thinking about. So it
sure.
took me 10 years to figure out how to get out alive. And like I said, I was putting the puzzle together in my head. I am educating myself, keeping my ears and eyes open. I'm trying to find any kind of information I can. And then after 10 years, I thought I know how to get out. But only difference was by then I was married. I have 24-year-old wife,
Mm,
4-year-old daughter, and 2-year-old son. So now I have to take my whole family across. It's not myself anymore. And what we did, what I find out was communist country of Yugoslavia had a little bit more freedoms than the rest of us, rest of the Eastern
mm.
European countries. Marshal Tito, I'm pretty sure you heard this name and many
Oh, of
people.
course, yeah.
He was also fighting against the Russians during the World War, alongside with the Germans. But when the war was coming to the end, he saw that Germans are going to lose. So he jumped the ships and became the communist president of Yugoslavia. But he never liked the Russians. They didn't trust him, and he didn't like them either. And he kept a little bit more freedoms for his people than the rest of us did. And what I find out was that Yugoslavian border between Yugoslavia and Austria wasn't as tight, as impossible to cross as our borders. So anyway, to make the long story short, it was what was the date? It was June 21st, night of June 21st, and we were to try to cross the border from Yugoslavia to Austria, 2 o'clock in the morning. And but we were spotted by Yugoslavian soldiers. They started
Mm,
chasing after us with the rifles and dogs and spotlights. And I was carrying our 2-year-old boy in my hand, and my wife was holding our 4-year-old daughter's hand.
mm.
And now we are running for our lives. Our only chance was to cross that border before they come close enough to arrest us or start shooting at us. And they were close and came. They didn't have little children, so they could run faster than we could. But luckily
Of
for
course,
us,
yeah.
the rain was just coming down in the sheets. It was just
Mm,
as we are coming closer to this point, the rain is it's raining and it's getting stronger, heavier, heavier. And when we were running, it was just torrential rain. And that was blocking those spotlights. The rain was stopping to reach our bodies. The lights were reflecting on the rain. So they couldn't see us, but like I said, it's just a matter of the time. And
mhm.
we crossed that border. They were behind us probably 100 to 150 yards. If it was another 100 yards away, we probably wouldn't make it. They would come close enough
Wow.
to see us actually. But like I said, that rain was protecting us and saving our lives pretty much.
Yeah, just
So,
like the
and
in when George Washington is retreated from Long Island, he had the fog, and without that, the British would have wiped them out. So I think
right,
weather does
right.
work. I look at it as divine intervention. So,
Yeah, yeah,
so now you're in Czech. Now
exactly.
you're in Yugoslavia, and how did things go there? Did you leave there as soon as you could?
No, we actually have to go. we end up getting into refugee camp because you couldn't just move around freely. When we were in Austria, I mean, not Yugoslavia,
Oh,
we make it
Austria,
to
yeah.
Austria. And so we were in a refugee camp, and I want to go to America. That was my dream. So we were applying for United States of America, and you have to fill out the lots of paperwork and write your life history. That was
Mm,
all translated and sent over to U.S. Consul in Vienna. And eventually he called us for an interview. That was about hour-long interview with translator, of course, because we didn't speak English. And then council decided to approve our paperwork. So then they send us to doctor to make sure that we are all healthy, don't have any weird diseases. I guess I don't know. And uh, and then you still cannot leave unless you have the sponsor in America.
right.
And once you get sponsored, once you are approved and you are sponsored, then you can go. And we came over here legally at the time because we were approved by government, more or less. And so we have green cards, social security numbers, and everything right away. So I could start working right away.
I think today's policy, where the people come in here illegally by the millions, and they're given cell phones, hotel rooms, travel anywhere, any state, it must really infuriate someone like you who had to wait and had to do it. And you were a legitimate refugee. You weren't just
Right,
an economic refugee. Say, hey, I couldn't make it in Czechoslovakia very well. I want to come here and work. And you tried to do it again. You did it legally, and it took you a while. Meanwhile, these
right,
people are coming in, just strutting in, and the minute they come in, they're not arrested and sent back. They're given a plane ticket or a bus ticket, and they're given hotel rooms, and they're giving all kinds of food and cell phones and free medical and free dental. It's changed a little bit
right.
since you came in.
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't just that, but they were checking our background somehow. And there were people in that refugee camp who were there for 2 years already, and they couldn't go on because they were getting denied. There were people applying for America and got denied, so apply over again, denied. Apply for Australia, denied. So there were people who were not allowed to pass through. There must be something in their background,
Sure.
and so it was tough when we were in that refugee camp, we could walk in and out. We were not in the jail. It was old military complex with the gate, of course, and fence. But you can walk in and out. I even found a job. I was working outside the camp, but
Mhm.
you cannot start your life. We left our old life behind. We could not go back to it because we would be arrested or persecuted, executed possibly, but you cannot start your new life in that refugee camp also. You are living between the two worlds. You are caught in the vacuum, kind of. So some people were not getting approved, and it was tough. Some of them committed suicide over there after two
Oh, that's
years.
terrible. What a shame.
So
So explain to us your first few days. First of all, who sponsored you, and explain a little bit about your first few days or weeks in the United States.
yes, well, we got sponsored by church. It was First Lutheran Church in the town of Beach in North Dakota.
Mm,
It's called Beach. There is no water anywhere, but it's called Beach. And it's the last city before you cross into Montana, actually. It's right on the Montana border almost. And so when we arrived over there, we didn't speak English. We have $600 in our pockets, clothes on our
mm.
back, and two little children. So we were pretty much started right from the scratch. And one thing which we are required to do, and I thought it was a very good thing, because somebody purchased the flight tickets for us to come to fly from Austria to America, and we had to pay those flight tickets back.
Sure.
But we have six months before we were required to start paying the tickets back, and we could pay only $10 a month if we wanted to,
Jeez.
but we have to pay
Yeah.
it back. And I really like that idea because it kind of forces you to start working, to do something, to start
Be
generating money.
responsible. Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, yeah. So
So,
it was very very different for us, of course.
but you assimilated pretty quickly, and you've embraced liberty and freedom.
Oh
And
yeah,
I think
yeah.
the I've had lots of friends from Eastern Europe and communist countries and have you, and most of them will say what they've seen, what they fled is what they're seeing here in this country. So kind of
Mhm, mhm.
elaborate on that a little bit because I think you, someone who lived under communism, and it's one of
Right,
its more worst forms. And what
right.
you're seeing, I just read today that a man who was he's going to spend 6 months in jail because he made a meme critical of Hillary Clinton, and this is
Mhm.
in New York. I don't know if it was a New York court or a federal court. 6 months for making a. We used to have something called free speech, and we still have it to some extent. But here's a guy making a meme. They say how somehow it was election interference because obviously it was ridiculous to look at. You know, it was a spoof. Yet
Right,
nevertheless, he's going
right,
to
right.
jail, and stuff like this happens all the time. And it's not sometimes going to jail for speaking out. It's people who are afraid to speak out because they'll lose their job or they'll be shadow banned by YouTube or shut down, or their business will be boycotted.
Right, right. Yeah, it's it's political persecution. It's political imprisonment. That's what communists were doing. They says, okay, that person's gonna go to prison for 20 years. That person is gonna be there for life. That person is gonna be executed. You know, and and the and the prisons in communism, they have different levels of prisons, but the worst criminals were in the uranium mines. Czech
Mm.
Republic is really lots of uranium over there. And so political criminals were working in the uranium mines, mining the uranium with the bare hands and stuff. And those were people those were priests and ministers and
Uh,
pastors and
yeah.
professors and teachers and doctors, architects, intelligence of nation was running in the uranium mines, in the gulags pretty much. And then, of course, people like us who try to escape, and therefore you become enemy of the state. So, and it's kind of scary to see that stuff is coming over here. It was this black cloud which was constantly hanging over our heads. We were
Mm-hmm.
always looking over our shoulder. They have informant throughout the population, and it could be your neighbor, even your brother, your family might be working as an informant for secret police. And if they hear somebody say something unusual or something, now you are being watched by secret police themselves, and then you could end up executed or whatever. So
They had something that, no, I know Cuba had something called Committee for the Defense of the Revolution, and there were block leaders in the whole country through a network. And so if they saw that, oh, Peter's got a few friends over on a Sunday, uh-oh, he might be having a
yeah,
church service, and you'd be
yeah,
turned in, and sometimes no evidence was necessary. And that person who was doing that dirty work, he or she might get a few extra rations for a few extra pieces of meat, and that's what they would do. They
right.
would go out of the way to look for anybody that may be a threat to the state.
Exactly. That's exactly true. So I do also, hell, I wrote a book. I have the book over here if I can show it. It's called Journey for Freedom. And that book has 314 pages, and there is lots of stuff in there. I also do the public speaking. And for 20 years or so, during my speaking, I keep saying, we have left that black cloud hanging over our heads, and now that cloud is over here. It came over here, and now it's hanging over America, and it's going bad. And if we ever lose freedom in America, we have no place to go. We cannot leave over here to be free somewhere else because there isn't somewhere else anymore. If
I
we
know it's
lose
not
all
Canada.
our freedom, no, no, it's not Canada or Australia. I mean, they are both a lot more socialist than we are already. And if we lose freedom, that's it. We have no place to go. So our only chance is to, protect our freedoms and uphold the United States Constitution, of course, and keep our representatives keep their feet to the fire and say, this is the oaths you were promised on, you swore on to uphold and protect it. You need to do that because that constitution is only thing right now which is standing between them and us. And once the
Now,
constitution is gone, that's it.
when you are a U.S. citizen at this point,
Right.
in order to become a
Yes.
U.S. citizen, you had to study and know the Constitution, correct?
Right. Right. Yeah, we
Yeah,
have to
it's a
pass the. Yes. Go ahead.
there was an episode of a TV show called Monk, is detective, great powers of observation. And there was a victim of a crime. And before he even spoke to her, he said, "You must be from Eastern Europe." Or no, like, why do you say that? Because you have a copy of the Constitution in your pocketbook. The Americans don't read the Constitution, so you got to be a foreigner.
Yeah, we have to pass the test. It wasn't easy test. It was if we didn't study, there was no way to pass it. It's
Yeah,
asking about the structures of the government, three branches, you know, the everything pretty much about different presidents and constitution and lots of other things. So we would not pass it. And when I was telling my American friends after we got citizenship, and I was telling them the questions which were on the test, they says I would never pass it. There's no way I can pass this test.
right.
But so
Hey, Peter, I upgraded my Zoom account to more than for an hour, but it's telling me I'm running out of time. So anyway, tell the listeners and viewers where they can get a copy of your book. You have a website where people can learn more about your work and book you if they want to have you speak at through their group or buy a copy of
yes,
your book.
right, right. Well, my website is called also Journey for Freedom. The book is called Journey for Freedom. It is on Amazon for about well, since 2010 it's on Amazon. But problem is I started having problems with Amazon 2 years ago, and I cannot verify the orders, and I'm trying to solve this problem for 2 years. So if
Yeah.
somebody orders the book on Amazon, I don't know if they really get it. But
And
it
not
can
only
be
that,
also
but Amazon gets a chunk, 25%. So it's
right,
better to
right,
buy it
yeah.
directly from you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Other than that, it can be purchased on my website. It's Journey for Freedom, and you can follow the directions over there and purchase it right on my website.
And
Um,
I want to order one from you, and I want an autographed copy too. So,
okay, okay,
all right,
that sounds good.
all right. Any final closing remarks here? Yeah, we get 3 minutes left. Maybe it will give me the whole amount. Uh, what can people do if you were giving advice to the average listener or potential viewer here, and to say, okay, we get bad news. What do you recommend? So, give us some recommendations what they can do to be part of this great freedom fight.
Well, like I says, our strongest weapon is United States Constitution. And of course, we know that our governments I am in America for 40 years and I see the freedom being lost every day. Today we have more freedoms than we're gonna have tomorrow. And yesterday we have more freedoms than we have today. They chipping them away every day.
Mhm.
And they ignoring the constitution. They trying to change it, say it's outdated, it's bad, it's not needed anymore. The constitution is our biggest weapon. We are still somewhat free over here because of the constitution. If the constitution didn't exist, we would not be here.
That's right.
We would be gone already. The freedoms would be gone already. Like I says, and the government, federal government, and local governments, of course, but mostly federal government is trying to destroy that constitution. And once they do, that's it. We need to understand the Constitution, not just to know that there is articles and this. We need to
Right.
understand that Constitution, and we need to have our representative to do what they promise, what they were swear to do, protect and uphold it.
Well,
And
there
of
are a
course,
lot of yeah,
it
there are a
says
lot of organizations out there, and for those viewers who are any viewer, listener, or viewer would like some recommendations, they could just contact us, and we can put you in touch with fellow freedom activists in your
right.
particular neighborhood or community.
Yes,
And
yes,
studying the Constitution. And one way is that we have there's some great videos on our website from incredible instructors, so you can get a lot. There's also the Constitution is the Solution, which is
hmm
I think, what, an 8-part by Robert Brown, a former colleague of
yeah,
mine.
yeah,
And I think all those are available, I believe, on YouTube now. You can buy
right,
the
right.
DVD set through American
Yes,
Opinion, but you can also just go on YouTube and have it. And I encourage people to host constitutional study groups in your home, in your church,
right,
local
right.
libraries have meeting rooms, and then I buy them. We at Camp Constitution we buy 1,000 or so at a time, and we donate these. We've donated thousands of constitutions to schools, to civic groups. We hand them out at different events, and handing one out, is not well and good, but it's like I can give you a book, doesn't mean you're going to read it, but
Right,
we
right.
also have instruction to go along with it. So, well,
I
thank you
am
so much.
taking that. Yes.
Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
I'm taking that course with the Constitution as a solution. This is my second time around, and it's actually 6 hours, six hour-long sessions, and we're doing it at 2 hours at night. So this Monday we were doing it every Monday. So today is
That's
the
great.
last two chapters or whatever, two sessions. So
All right. Well, we're running out of time. We want to thank you, Peter, for being a guest, and we're going to
thank
put
you.
your contact information as a link in the description of
Okay.
both the audio and video aspect. You've been listening to the Camp Constitution Radio with your host Hal Shurtleff, and until next week, may God richly bless you. And close the meeting. Yeah, there we go.